What am I doing with the brick? Well, making a wonderful galletto al matone, chicken pressed with the brick, and some Frico di Montasio, a cheese crisp made with Montasio cheese. So stay with me. Buongiorno. Welcome to my kitchen. Welcome to my kitchen del focolare. Focolare. Focolare is a hearth. And in Friuli, especially in the north part of Friuli, right underneath the Alps, the Julian Alps, the focolare, which is the hearth, is usually in the middle of a room. And it is really the hearth of the house. Everybody gathers around it. The polenta pot usually hangs in the center, and it's cooking. The cheese is being grilled. So today's dish, Frico, is typically from that region. And I'm going to teach you how to make Frico. I'm going to let you see two forms. The Frico chip, which I'm sure you've had around, which is just a sort of a lacy chip of cheese, and the filled Frico. What I'm doing here, I'm sauteing some onion just until they're wilted. And I have here some boiled potatoes. And basically what I'm doing here as a filling, I'm doing just as you would home fries. Now mind you that the filling could vary. Potatoes are always good because the potatoes are the starch that is in it and that sort of balances the dish itself. But within the potatoes, you could put the spinach, Swiss chard, whatever you'd like, a little prosciutto, pancetta. As you make home fries, you can add anything else to this. A little salt, a little fresh pepper. This is Montasio cheese. And the Montasio cheese is a cheese indigenous to Friuli, Venezia Giulia. It is 100% cow's milk. The cheese itself is a semi-soft cheese. And I begin to clean the rind. Let me just cut a piece. You don't want a too aged cheese. You want to eat it as a table cheese. You want it aged about 12 months, 14 months. But for the Frico, you want it young. You take a grater and the larger sort of holes of a grater because you want like flakes. Okay, here we are. I have some already grated for the sake of time. To really assure success of this dish, use a non-stick pan. And you heat it up first, and you just sprinkle the base of it, not too thick, with the cheese. Then you take some of the potato filling. Now, once you have sprinkled the cheese, lower the heat to medium. You don't want to burn the cheese because then it gets bitter. You put the filling in, the potatoes and the onions or whatever else you have chosen. You top it again with the Montasio, and you just let it cook over a medium flame. Now the cheese will cook, all of its water will evaporate, and it will begin to form a crust. Don't pry on it. When it is done, it will slide by itself. I will show you. See, now it's standing firm. It's not yet formed a crust. So feel confident. Leave it there until it will slide by itself. Now while that's cooking, I'm going to also show you how to make the chip itself. Again, it's a non-stick pan. This you want very light. There I put a little bit more cheese because that's going to be the sort of the envelope that's going to hold the potatoes. But in this case, I want them nice and light, almost like lace. And again, you have to let it sort of slowly cook over medium heat, and you will see it developing a nice yellow color. Then we'll flip it. Let me tell you, if you want to capture the essence of a cuisine, if you want to cook Italian, if you want to cook Chinese, the first thing you should focus is on ingredients. Authentic ingredients, authentic Italian ingredients will make half of the dish. If you are using these ingredients, you are halfway there. If you're using Montasio, if you are using Parmigiano Reggiano, if you're using prosciutto di Parma, if you are using aceto balsamico, this will guarantee you the taste of Italy that nobody can take away. So before beginning, the recipes are very important, the technique is very important, but focus on the ingredients and make sure that you get those authentic ingredients. And this is one of those cheeses that is authentically Italian. And when cooked, it will give you that Italian flavor immediately. And actually, there you go, you see? It is coming off, not yet, but almost there, we're almost there. With this one, we are ready to flip it. There we go. When it slides like this in your pan, then it is ready to be flipped. Now, I could just flip it like that, or you just take a spatula and do it the same way. As you see, it has formed a nice crust, and now we want the crust on the other side. And this has been sometimes referred to as the crustless pizza. I don't know. But it certainly will have two wonderful crisp crusts on the side and the filling. This is the Frico, the lacy Frico. And by the way, this is wonderful for hors d'oeuvres if you're having somebody come home, and you can make it in advance and to serve it with white wine. Now, you can just have it like that flat, or you can just sort of set it over this, and slowly it will fall into a nice shape that will sort of give you a little height in the presentation itself. Okay. As you see now, it sort of let go of the pan, and it is ready. You can close the fire. The cheese does release some fat, so it's always nice. I slide it on, sort of pat it, and then put it right back on. Cut it in half. You can cut it in quarters. You can cut it in little slices, just like pizza, I guess. That's why it is called. Yeah. You can handle it freely. It is best when it's done and eaten right thereafter. You could make it ahead of time and then reheat it in the oven, but the cheese will really sort of be a little harder. So the best it is like this. While this one, you can make way in advance and no problem. I'm going to serve just a little bit of salad. Here I have a little of the radicchio and arugula. That's from my garden right in the back. And my mother and Giovanni take care of that. Radicchio is very, very traditional salad of Trieste, specifically the city of Trieste. And we plant it in the springtime, and it's most prized when it's primo taglio, which is the first cut. It is a leaf, let me show it to you. It is a green, simple leaf, but it is in the chicory family. So it has a bitterness, and it is just wonderful. Here's your finished Frico and the chip, and I think I'll have a little bite of the chip, actually. Crunchy and delicious. Asparagi gratinati, one of my favorites. I love asparagus. And they're used a lot in the Italian cuisine. Although there we use them mostly in the springtime and the wild ones. And I'll tell you how I used to go and forage for them, but first I want to get these in the boiling water. To clean asparagus, I think that all of you just have done this. You just sort of peel the bottom part, and you sort of just bend it where it's really tough, cut the tip off, and the rest is all usable. I'm gonna just sort of blanch them in boiling water. And then gratinare means to gratinate, to give a nice little crust on the top. And for the topping here, I'll use Parmigiano Reggiano, that true Italian ingredient which will really make this dish very Italian. A little breadcrumbs I'll add to that, just to add a little crunch when they're toasted. And for freshness, just a little bit of lemon rind lemon rind, I use it an awful lot, and lemon zest, even when I braise meats and whatever, try putting in just a piece of the lemon zest or the oranges. You won't taste it, but it'll give such a fresh taste to whatever you're cooking. And whenever you are grating it, just do the yellow part. Don't go into the white, because the white is the bitter part. Just toss it. Springtime is the time for asparagus. In the wild, there is the asparagus fern, which is a fern with sort of, it looks like a lacy fern with it's very prickly though, it really, and it spreads out. And in the middle, there's these new shoots, which would be the next sprig. But in its prime, it's the asparagus. And they're very thin. They're the size of a pencil and kind of long. And we used to forage them, used to have a stick because you wanted to press aside this prickly sort of branches to get to the new shoot that was coming up. But inevitably, we would be all scratched from the prickles of this asparagus fern. My favorite was frittata di asparagi e uova, an omelet of wild asparagus and fresh eggs. The flavor, and you know, I go back now specifically in March to go forage asparagus and have that frittata. It's right here, the flavor, it just haunts me. All right, now, the asparagus, I like them crunchy. You could shock them in a sense, you know, put them in cold iced water. If you want to prep this in advance and wait just for your guests to come. But otherwise, if you're going to do it continuously right into the broiler and onto the table, leave it nice and hot. You don't need to. Here I have some melted butter. I'm going to just salt them a little bit. Put half of the butter. Top them with a mixture of the breadcrumbs, the Parmigiano Reggiano, and lemon. I'm going to leave just the tips out. I want to see the tips. I don't want to cover the whole thing. Top with a little bit more butter, just to sort of moisten the topping. And like this, you put them in the broiler and get them nice and crisp. And serve them family style like this, or put them next to, in our case, we'll put it the chicken. Galletto al mattone, spring chicken under a brick. Very typical Italian spring dish. We have a brick here, and what you really want to do with the brick is to weigh down the chicken, the galletto, so the skin has maximum contact with the hot surface, and it caramelizes and it becomes crisp. So wrap it up in a double foil paper so it doesn't break through, and you just wrap it up as you would a package, nice and tight. Okay, and we are ready to cook with that. This is a galletto, a spring chicken or Poussin. You could do this with quails if you want. You can do this with a larger chicken, but this is a wonderful size to do it this way. Let me put my glasses on, since this needs fine precision work. I have my cast iron skillets already heating up, and I'll tell you about them in a moment. First, let's cut any excess skin off, fat, the neck. And what you want to do, you want to cut out the backbone. So you start from one side and you just go down. One side. Then you want to take the backbone out completely. Okay. Just want to pry it to get the breastbone, and this is the actually breastbone that you want to remove, and you just cut through the membrane, and then right underneath the ribs, and just with your fingers you work underneath slowly. Again, you just run the tip of your knife against the bone. Poultry is wonderful. Everybody likes it. It's healthy. It's easy to prepare, but you have to be careful, of course, for the health reason, for the salmonella, and that is that when you are working with poultry, you work just that, and you clean completely before and specifically after you finish all your utensils and the tables where you have been working. Now, chicken does get slippery when you work with it, and in order to avoid that sometimes, if you use a clean kitchen rag and hold yourself down, so this way you don't there's the little sort of wishbone, which comes out right at the joint. This is the wishbone, and again you go for the joint of the, if you can't find the joint, just bend the wing and we'll give you the joint itself. Okay, again, the wings here, let me cut off a little excess fat here, and the wings we can either fold them or you can cut them halfway, but you can cut them after they're baked. And we'll marinate them right on here. Okay, we're ready to season the chicken, and again, simple salt, fresh pepper, some garlic slices. The longer you let it marinate, of course, the more flavor will absorb inside, but half an hour is fine. And you let it marinate in the refrigerator. A little bit of what I usually do, let's put a little pepper and salt on the side, and that's going to be for the other side. So. Fresh rosemary. Very good. So you leave it like this for about a half an hour in the refrigerator to marinate. You can leave it an hour or 2 hours, sometimes even overnight. But you know, the young chickens are so tender that they really absorb in a lot, and all they need is about half an hour. And for the sake of time, I have some that have been marinating. Okay, we've been marinating for the past half hour. Now, what's very important in preparing this dish is the cooking surface. So let me just talk a little bit about that. And in both cases, it's cast iron. Now, this is a portable cast iron grill, and if you have a grill, a full-fledged grill, then that's perfect. But if not, the portable cast iron grill is fine. Get it nice and hot, just a little bit oiled. Before putting the chicken on, just a tiny bit. And if you don't have that, then a cast iron pan also is perfectly fine. The same thick sort of surface that retains even heat. And I'm going to take the rosemary and the garlic away, because if you put it on underneath, it will burn, but I really want it to give flavor. And what you want to do is that you want to put the skin side first down. And once you put things down on a griddle, just let it be. Don't begin to move it, because the skin is just beginning to cook and it sticks. So let it form that little crust. All this garlic and rosemary that I have on the side, I'll put it on now, and I'll take the brick and just rest it right on top. This will give it the weight, and the weight is right on. I'll do the same for the one in the cast iron. Put the garlic and the rosemary in it, and then top it with this skillet. The weight of this skillet on top of the chicken will make maximum contact with all of the skin, and do press down occasionally. And now you have to let it be. You have to let it be until it forms that crust. I mean, you know, the problem is always, even when you put things on the grill, you pick it up and it's sticking. Just let it be. Let it form that first crust. It will release itself, and then you can move it. I'm going to check at which point we are now. As you can see, a nice golden, even all over. Replace this. Let me check the one in the cast iron. Just as nice. Let's check. I think everything is ready. Wow, this is wonderful. This looks great. This one is done awesome. Now, how do you know when chicken is done? Of course, the nice color and all that. But when the juices, the sort of water of the meat stops flowing out, and you see a dryness beginning around the meat, more or less that's the time that the chicken is done. So check it, look at it and see that it is cooked. But if there's no more juices flowing out, that means that it's done. And of course, you don't want to overcook it, because chicken, especially the breast, does get sort of dry if it is overcooked. So we are ready to serve. And I'm going to serve this in sort of a platter family style. I love serving things in platters family style because it creates sort of an opportunity for interaction, giving it to each other, commenting, not just focusing on your own little plate, and that's what you're going to eat. I think that family style, there's more to it than just sort of all on one plate. These are the asparagus which were gratinati, and I'll use that sort of as a backdrop for the chicken. Now, you could just serve the whole chicken if you want everybody to have a whole, or you can cut it in half. I like to just sort of cut it in half. It's kind of hot, so it's nice and juicy and moist. Some fresh rosemary and fresh herbs. When added like this as a garnish at the end, one would say it was just for the eye. No, it's not, because the heat of the cooked food makes some of the oils of the herbs to be released, and you get that sort of fresh scent of rosemary coming right into your nostrils as you're, okay, a little bit down here, a little more. It looks like almost like a coronation here. Oh, it's wonderful. This dish, in its simplicity, it's really magnificent. But also cooking it this way, I'm sure it's going to be a big conversation item for your guest when your guest comes in and says, "What are you doing with that brick?" But it's the technique, as you saw, that really makes it work. And as we say at my house, with this wonderful dish, I want to get quickly tutti a tavola a mangiare.